Welcome to another special edition of Daily Airline News focusing on the search for MH370, and delighted to say joined by two co-hosts today, Richard in Germany. Good morning, Richard.
Good afternoon, Jeffrey.
And Blaine in Asia. Good afternoon, Blaine.
Howdy, Jeffrey and Richard.
Great. So we're going to answer two lots of questions today. We're going to answer questions about MH370 and the Armada fleet, and we're also going to be answering questions on the debris. But to start off with, Richard's got some new Armada information for us. Richard, can you lead off?
Yeah, Armada 8603 left Fung Tau port where it was built for a sea trial off the coast of Vietnam yesterday afternoon. So that is a new addition to the Armada 86 fleet. We talked yesterday about 8601 and 8602, but now then 8603.
Yeah, now segueing straight into another Armada question for you, Richard, from Pax Altoin, X-Ray 2 Sierra. In relation to the Armada's crew, have they signed a non-disclosure agreement as part of their employment? Ships leak, but these ships seem to be watertight. You're not wrong.
Yeah, Pax, they have signed a non-disclosure agreement. In fact, Blaine and I were both invited to the Ocean Infinity conference in December 2017 in London, and everybody there had to sign a non-disclosure agreement. It's interesting when Armada 7806 visited Fremantle between the 4th and the 6th of March this year, several journalists managed to get into the secure area where the ship was moored in the Australian Marine Complex, AMC, in Fremantle. They asked the crew on the dockside some questions and were told quite clearly, we are not saying anything. And you will remember when Armada 7806 left Fremantle, it put up a destination on its AIS satellite tracking, first to Jakarta in Indonesia, then to Cape Town in South Africa, and it actually went back to the MH370 search area and then to Singapore. So I think that's what we call obfuscation.
In fact, those guys were friends of mine, Jamie Freestone from Channel 9 News, and I wondered how on earth he got dockside because I couldn't. And Blaine, question for you from Tim, 4701. Please ask Blaine about his perspective on the missing serial numbers from several pieces of debris.
Well, Tim, for one thing, there aren't missing serial numbers on several pieces of debris. Almost all of the 370 debris is small and shattered, and not every piece of the plane has a serial number on it. Otherwise, the plane itself, the livery, would look like a newspaper. There are many pieces that do not have any numbers or part numbers on them. As far as the ones that do, there are three that have serial numbers on them that are matched to Malaysia 370. One is the Tanzania wing flap, one is the left outboard flap from Mauritius, and the third is the first piece found, the flaperon. Now, there was a lot of confusion. I think what you're hearing comes because the flaperon had an ID plate on it, which was just glued on, which was not found on La Réunion. This ID plate was missing, probably because it was just glued on and fell off. However, the flaperon was confirmed by a missing, not by the missing plate, but by an internal component with a matching serial number on it. that was traced to the manufacturer of the flaperon in Spain. So the flaperon is confirmed by a matching serial number of an internal component. And in fact, one more researcher, private researcher, actually found a second internal component that matched.
Thanks, Blaine. Richard, Billy Baloney wants to know. First of all, he says, great work and efforts to help resolve this unfortunate and seemingly poorly official conducted resolution of this 370 disaster. Would it be possible, though, through your influence, to perhaps create a crowdfunding effort to hire or financially assist Armada officials to conduct search efforts, as it seems obvious the governments involved are no longer interested? Well, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, Jeffrey. I think maybe Blaine and I and you should start collecting the $70 million for Ocean Infinity. But actually, Billy, funding is not the issue. We've mentioned before we're in contact, all three of us, with a philanthropist millionaire who owns several companies, including an underwater search company. And he's interested in searching for MH370 and, by the way, also Amelia Earhart's plane at his own cost. So, yeah, money's not the issue. He is waiting to see if other attempts by official channels like the Ocean Infinity proposal, whether these other attempts come to nothing. He sees himself as a sort of last resort option if the normal process fails.
Yeah, and that's a very exciting option too, isn't it? Um,
Indeed.
yeah, Blaine, back to you from Dan, November Tango 2 Yankee Bravo. Did any of the discovered debris have burn marks suggesting a fire of any sort? And how many pieces found by you and others can 100% be certain that they're from MH370? So there's two questions there, Blaine.
To answer the first one on the burned pieces, I did collect from local people in southern Madagascar 2 pieces of 370 debris that were burnt. It was handed in by me to ATSB. They did an analysis of it, and they determined that one was burnt, but that it was done after the debris washed ashore. And the second one they believed was just a resin that appeared burnt but wasn't actually burnt. And they passed those 2 on to Malaysia to do further investigation into the burning, which should have been done, but it was not. The pieces were not burnt around the edges. It was worthy of further investigation to see if there may have been a heat flash that discolored the debris, but that was never done. So we're just left with the initial ATSB report. Otherwise, none of the pieces that I and others have found showed any signs of fire or burning. On to the second question of how many can be confirmed. Well, there are 43 pieces of 370 debris, 33 in the Annex 13 report, and 10 that have never been officially investigated, that I am convinced are all from the plane. However, when you get down to the official investigation, Malaysia came up with a system of different classifications of levels of confirmation. So if it's confirmed by matching serial numbers, as I said, most of the pieces of debris don't have any numbers on them at all. That would be 3 that are confirmed by matching serial numbers to 9M MRO. In addition to that, there are another 18 that Malaysia determined to be from likely to almost certainly from Malaysia 370. And they did that by matching the paint, matching the stencil, the honeycomb, the carbon fiber polymer, the veneer on the interior cabin debris from Malaysia Airlines. And in the case of the monitored case, the coat hook, and even the fabric from one of the seats. So that would be 21 pieces that are from either confirmed to likely to almost certainly from Malaysia 370. Now, there were another 10 that they listed as not identifiable. That's not because they didn't think they were from the plane. They wouldn't have put them in the report if they didn't think they were from the plane. They just couldn't tell exactly where they were from on the plane, so they put non-identifiable. And that included one piece that actually had part numbers on the high lock pins that matched a 777, but they couldn't determine exactly where on the plane it was from. So they took a very conservative approach and simply said not identifiable. Then there are another 10 that have been identified from photographs and private physical examination that are not included in the official report at all.
Thanks, Blaine. Richard Rustan Shah. The contract with Malaysia is based on a no fine, no fee arrangement. However, is Ocean Infinity legally obligated to conduct the search under the terms of the agreement, or are they free to opt out for any reason? Interesting question, that one.
Yeah. Firstly, I'm not a lawyer, but Blaine is. And maybe he can help. We do not know the terms and conditions of any legally binding agreement or contract that Ocean Infinity may have signed. Obviously, if they have signed legally binding terms and conditions, they will follow that and abide by those terms and conditions. Ocean Infinity have always made it clear that they want compensation of $70 million if they're successful. And Malaysia has always made it clear that there are terms and conditions attached to receiving a compensation. And that is about as much as we know.
Mm. Blaine, Stephen Reed, 8732. He wants to know whether it'd be better to hand this debris over to experts in the US or the UK for thorough analysis and evaluation before returning them to Malaysian authorities. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, it is. And actually, I have done that. Even some of the early ones before I handed over to Malaysian officials, I had privately examined by engineers. I had a chance to show them and got their opinions, and they said it was definitely worthy of handing in. And their opinions concurred with the ones that were in the official investigation. Unfortunately, the last four pieces that I have found and handed in have not been officially examined by Malaysia. And yes, in the case of one, the broken O panel, I transported it to Malaysia myself, had it examined by professional aviation engineers who determined it was of aviation origin. They weren't sure exactly where on a 777 it was from. And then we handed that in to the Malaysian officials. I gave to the families, they gave to Malaysia. Still no official investigation released. And finally, another was privately examined by an aviation engineer, not in my presence, and has been handed on to an unspecified country for official investigation. So I agree with you. That's a good idea, and I've been doing it, and I'll do that with any future ones I find.
And Jeffrey, if I could just add to that,
Sure.
Blaine has very carefully documented each debris find he's been associated with. There are multiple photographs, descriptions, measurements of length and weight and composition of the item. And ATSB in Australia and Bayer in France have investigated items of debris, and I would add them to the list, not just the US and the UK, but I think Australia and Bayer in France have both proven their value and their expertise in analyzing debris in the past.
Indeed, you're right. So, Richard, Jeff Daniel, 814, wants to know whether Ocean Infinity gets involved in cable laying or cable maintenance activities.
Yes, they do. Cable and pipe laying is big business. Ocean Infinity offer subsea surveys, route planning, and inspection, maintenance, and repair (IMR) capability. They also offer an unexploded ordnance UXO detection and carry out UXO surveys to identify and mitigate hazards along cable routes prior to laying. So it's not their core business to do end-to-end cable and pipe laying, but they do offer a whole range of these survey and inspection maintenance work. And they use USVs, AUVs, and ROVs for this work. And as you say, it's standard these days, Jeff. You don't send the divers down any longer.
No, indeed. Blaine, from Berks County Farmhouse, it's related to the one you just previously answered, and that is what efforts are being made to have the debris properly analysed. You really have covered that, but you may want to add a little bit more to it.
Yes, and I will. And Richard is correct. From the very beginning, I have taken meticulous measurements and photos of all the debris before I handed it in, and I continue to do that. And I am getting a few more pieces of debris and photos from Madagascar as we speak that I'll be showing and discussing with you. And I also want those to go for private examination before anything is done with those officially, because frankly, the last four pieces I have handed to Malaysia or tried to hand to Malaysia have not been officially investigated by them.
Yeah, exactly. Richard Dixie 3, thank you both, Jeffrey and Richard, for sharing your recent podcast video. It is great to be able to keep up to date with the search for MH370, missing aircraft, and souls aboard. Richard, would you happen to know if there's anything on board the MH370 aircraft that is detectable by satellites and these ships? It's an interesting question.
Yeah, Dixie 3, a whole long list. So here we go. They have the full range of subsea and subsea floor detection equipment. They can detect anomalies in the geology. They have a sub-bottom profiler, magnetic detection, conductivity, turbidity, video, thermal camera, laser line, methane detectors, radiation detectors, you name it. They also have seabed drills and can do what is known as cone penetration testing, CPT. They can also conduct seismic surveys using air guns and towed seismic sensors. So there's just basically nothing that they can't do if they're asked.
Hmm. Blaine, from Paul Savage 6501. What does Blaine think about the fisherman that reported finding a wing in his fishing net south of South Australia? Should this not be investigated? You're aware of that one?
Yes, I am. My understanding is he dutifully reported it at the time and said that it should have been taken more seriously and investigated at the time. And I agree. Unfortunately, he did not take any pictures of the big one that got away. So all we have is his unprofessional opinion of it being an airplane wing. And it's good that he reported it. It would have been great if he'd been able to bring it back with him, but he's a fisherman, not a wreck hunter. So I fully understand that. He has indicated that he gave the coordinates of where it was to the Australian officials, and that when he let it go, it sunk. They could go there and look for it if they want. It's apparently not in very deep water. Do I personally believe that that was from Malaysia 370? No, I don't. And there are two reasons for that. One is that subsequent to that, we have found many parts of both wings of the aircraft. And I think that Richard made a very good point when he asked which wing intact did the fishermen find. And the second reason is that all the debris went to the African side, and none of the debris went to the Australian side. So this, if it were from 370, would be going towards the Australian side, because I think he found it off the coast of South Australia. So that would change the drift analysis. Now, that's not the reason to not investigate it. It should have been investigated at the time and could still be investigated now by someone with the means and ability to go there and look. But do I think it's from Malaysia 370? No, I don't. I think it was from something else.
I agree with you. Richard, Volk Ovadaria 3653. Good day, gentlemen. I would like to repeat my question I posed some weeks ago. Sorry. On the Facebook MH370 families page, there's a statement summary about the search progress during 25-28 March done by Ocean Infinity and nothing about bathymetric survey. Is it fake? Is it real? So IAOI does some statement to a particular group. What are your thoughts on this? Thank you.
Yeah, good question, and we have addressed it before, but to be clear, the statement from the MH370 families is not a fake. It is a genuine statement from the families based on information from official sources. It is, however, an unconfirmed statement inasmuch as there's no official response from Ocean Infinity on the questions that you raise and on the statement. So I think that's about all that I'm willing to say publicly on the questions you have. I think it's clear that all three of us know a lot more what's going on behind the scenes, but it would be unfair to make any further comment. I don't know what your views are, gentlemen.
Yeah, no, I'll beg out of that one. How about you, Blaine?
I'll stick to debris.
Yeah, okay, good. Leave politics alone. And back to you, Blaine, from Philip Ansett, 5367. Obviously, he lives in Australia. Thank you, Jeffrey and Blaine, for a very informative episode. Why does it take the investigating authorities so long to collect any debris, let alone analyze and release the results? It seems there is a reluctance to do so and find some answers. Are there any other likely areas of debris that haven't been searched? Well, there's loads of those, but Blaine, I'll let you answer that.
Well, there are some people in Malaysia who are really dedicated to searching for and finding this plane. I've run into them, the engineers conducting the Annex 13 investigation, the ones looking at the debris, the ones supporting the search. So I want to express my gratitude to them. At the same time, there is a group in Malaysia that pretty clearly does not want the plane found at all. And then there's a very large group that just sort of wants it to go away. They feel like they've spent enough on it and they don't want to spend any more time or energy on it. And there's a certain bureaucratic inertia, especially now. I noticed early on when I found 6 pieces of debris in Madagascar, one which had barnacles on it that needed to be immediately investigated. It took them 6 months to pick it up. And the last 4 pieces that I have handed in have never been officially investigated at all by Malaysia. So there's a combination of a group that doesn't want it found, the people who really do want it found and want to resume the search, and then just the bureaucrats and politicians who just sort of want it to go away and forget about it. That to me is not acceptable. We need to solve this mystery so the families can move on, so we can all move on, so the flying public knows what happened, and so that Malaysia can move on.
Indeed. Richard, Stevie Warboys 4242. Hi guys, love the daily updates. And I've put a few questions forward and they haven't been discussed yet, but I'm hoping this one will. I'm sorry we've missed those. Back in 2014, there were lots of satellite images close to where the plane is supposed to have gone missing. Satellite data from the French, Japanese, and Thai authorities showed debris scattered, suggesting potentially a breakup upon impact with the ocean. Have these images ever been looked at in more detail, and has Blaine or Richard got a reason as to why this wasn't a major part of the investigation? Thank you to all three of you for the work you have done in finding the plane. However, I think the efforts will be in vain due to a government cover-up. I would love nothing more than to be proved wrong. Thanks, Steve from Chatham in England.
Yeah, well, we're going to prove you wrong, Stevie. Sorry about that. Satellite imagery was a major part of the investigation. The issue with satellite imagery is the resolution of the images is sometimes very poor. The parts that have been identified are sometimes very large and wouldn't have come from a plane. There is also a big problem in the Indian Ocean that there is so much rubbish and junk thrown overboard or lost overboard from ships. For example, in 2023, 221 containers were reported lost overboard from ships. So you can see there's a lot of stuff floating around out there which has got nothing to do with MH370. And then you have to pick out and identify those items which could have been from an aircraft. And you then have the problem that from all of the satellite imagery, no objects have actually been picked up and identified and led to either being from an aircraft or from MH370.
Yeah, and still on debris, Blaine, Panda Bear, 1964. The drift analysis stating the debris flowed to East Africa and islands of Africa. Is it not possible that some debris could have been blown off course and landed on the west coast of Australia? Has anyone done a search of Western Australia?
Very good question. And I first want to say that on the last question of the satellite images, I agree wholeheartedly with what Richard said. I don't think that any satellite spotted Malaysia 370 debris floating on the surface. You can't distinguish them. On to this question. Actually, I have been to the coast of West Australia and the coast of South Australia and Tasmania looking for debris. I did not find any. It is possible that some could wash ashore there, but for it to wash ashore there, the crash site would have to be farther south of Cape Lewin, south of 34 or 36 degrees for debris to go over there, because the western coast of Australia is kept very clean by the Cape Lewin current. So not much from the open ocean would wash ashore there at all. But I have been there myself. I went to Cervantes to check out the infamous towelette, and I found out that the Malaysia Airlines towelette had never been in the water. It was probably dropped by one of the anglers who flew Malaysia Airlines to Perth and go angling there. There is an individual named John Goldsmith who has searched the coast of West Australia and South Australia more meticulously than I have searched the coast of Africa, and he has found nothing. And I have found 22 pieces. And to me, his contribution is as great as mine. to the drift analysis. The fact that he has searched so meticulously and found nothing tells us as much as the fact that I have searched in the southwestern Indian Ocean and found debris. So, to answer the question, the fact that no debris has washed ashore in Australia is very significant. Tangaroa Blue did beach cleanups there. They were told to be on the lookout for debris and didn't find anything from the plane.
In fact, Panda Bear, we're actually showing, as Blaine was talking, we're showing a current map, ocean current map of the Indian Ocean, and you'll see the West Australian current going up to the equator and then turns west. And as Blaine mentioned, you've got the Lewin current coming down the coast from the north, and that is what has prevented any debris hitting the West Australian coast. So just to clarify it for you. So Richard, Mike Harrington, 5593, there is an agreed fine fee payable to whoever precisely identifies the crash location, but who will fund and or provide the salvage ships and crash recovery equipment? That's a very political question, Richard, isn't it?
Yeah, but in 2018, the contract with Ocean Infinity included salvage. And there was an agreed list of items that Malaysia would like to have salvage from MH370. It's not just the obvious items like the flight data recorder or the cockpit voice recorder, but other items of wreckage. For example, the cockpit door, if that's found, they would like to have. And there are parts of the engines or flaps that they would like to have to enable us to do further analysis. So we don't know what's in the 2025 agreement, but I wouldn't be surprised if it also included salvage.
One more for you, Richard. Bandit Davil wants to get some more detail on the micro AUV idea, says it's amazing. And the questions are, is the technology ready enough to deploy now, or is it still in development? And number two, is there any country or entity that would oppose a company or individual searching for MH370 off their own bat?
Well, number one, the equipment has been deployed. It's undergoing sea trials, and the US Navy are also involved in those sea trials. And number two, anyone can search in international waters. As we've just said, you need an agreement with the owner to salvage. Now, since Allianz Insurance has already paid out for the hull loss of MH370, they may now technically and legally be the owner of the hull if found. The state of registration remains Malaysia, and the aircraft is also subject to criminal investigation and is technically a crime scene. So it's a bit of a complicated one, Bandit Davil.
Yeah, it is indeed. So, gentlemen, we're running out of time. So, I would just like to sort of wrap this up. Viewers, thank you very much indeed for joining us. It's been fantastic to have your company. Richard, thank you for your research. Blaine, thank you very much indeed for all yours. And we will do this again. This is a little bit of a twist on what we normally do. And many of you asked if Blaine is going to become a regular feature. Yes, he is going to become a regular feature, probably a couple of times a week. So we're going to continue to answer the questions. I know there's a lot we didn't get to. I have kept records of them all, and we will work our way through them. So please do keep those questions coming. Please like us, please subscribe to us, and do tune in tomorrow when what are we doing tomorrow, Richard?
Oh, I think tomorrow we're planning to take a day off, Jeffrey, and
That's
come
right,
back
it's
on
Saturday.
Sunday.
That's right. And
Yeah,
yeah, sorry. Yes,
and
we're taking a day off, viewers. I've lost track of the days. And on Sunday, we're going to be looking at the plane guys are going to be looking at the China Eastern disaster. And Richard's done some fascinating work on that and quite revealing. And then on Monday, we're probably going to get Blaine back again to answer some more questions. So there's some really good things to look forward to. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Blaine. And all you folks have a great weekend.
yeah, you're very welcome, Jeffrey. Bye, Blaine.
Bye.
Thank you, Jeffrey and Richard. See you.